I'm looking forward to speaking with everybody. My daughter, Lana, was 10 years old when we first started the program. She was diagnosed when she was a toddler with one of the rare many genetic disorders out there. And so she's got a couple chromosomes that are duplicated. At the time, not much was known about it, but what she was going to present with were your typical autistic like symptoms. And what was recommended to us were the traditional speech, OT, physical therapy, all of those traditional therapies. And so for years, we tried all of those, many different therapists. We didn't necessarily get the progress that we thought we would. And so there was a parent whose child had the same diagnosis who recommended this treatment at the time that helped to work your brain. And so in looking at it, I found the book, What to Do About Your Brain Injured Child, and I read that over a course of half of a year and started to make a lot of sense. And so we went ahead and we started the course. That was when she was 10, and I was probably one of the ones with the oldest child in the class. And so we started it, she is 13 now. We've been on the program for 3 years. We've had several visits. Thus far in our long journey, this has been the only thing that has really helped her. It's been great for her, and she has been very appreciative of it, and it has opened up both of our worlds tremendously. We didn't join this program until she was 10, and at that time I was hoping and crossing all of my fingers that we weren't too late. I don't know the makeup of this group and how old your children are, but I do want to commend you all for joining and taking this first step. In hindsight, my husband and I really wish we had done this earlier, but we're here now and it has helped us. Like I said, traditional therapies, like when you said, like Spencer said, when you're inundated with all these things and you go down all these paths and you realize that they're not necessarily yielding the results you want, then you start to look elsewhere. And at that point for us, this was our last chance. Is this the end all for her in terms of everything we're going to do for her? Probably not. I would hope that we could get her more, but this has been the one thing that has worked for us so far.
Ishan is now 8 years old chronologically. Currently, his neurological age was 46 months at the last visit, which was in February. I'm hoping he's over 48, 49 by now. He was never diagnosed with autism, but he has global developmental delay. He was diagnosed with, I should say, he was diagnosed with chronic static encephalopathy. And he also had a genetic mutation that was found. So I learned very quickly that we as a family could spend our life chasing these labels, chasing the diagnosis, but at the end of it all, it's just a brain injury. And all that matters is how we can help him. And really the labels don't matter at all. Looking back to 3 years ago, my son Ishan, who was then 5 years old when I first took the course, he was in a school program here in New Jersey, which has a really good special needs program. And looking back, I feel like that's one of those things that actually went against us, ironically, just because there was so many facilities and, so we thought we were giving the kid all the therapies he could possibly want. He was getting physical therapy, OT, speech, developmental intervention, and a host of other things, outpatient therapy in school. He'd had early intervention before that. So we thought, he was doing great, but looking back, we realized that was a time that Ishan really had not made any progress at all, when I really think about it.
Our story starts the day that Chloe is born, and then she had very subtle seizures. Then the doctors realized after a month at the hospital, they told us that she has a severe brain injury because of hypoxia. And then she was not going to be able to move or walk or even talk because all the important areas in the brain had lost a lot of neurons. So the first month of her life, this horrible news came. And then we decided to look for, doctors usually gives you the bad news. Okay, what to do now? So we start asking other families, because for us, the families were very important testimony about what to do, because when you're a doctor, you're looking about the professional view, but we wanted also the emotional point of view. And then one family, we were very lucky because one family close to us told us about Doman. And then we decided to start. And actually, we started the program by reading the books, some books that we had all the information. And we started doing some physical and intellectual programs, homemade programs. And we saw that they were working so well that when Chloe was 5 months old, we started the program officially. And then we were doing the program for 4 years. No, sorry, 5 years and a half, something like that, or
yeah.
6.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And now the neurologist that told us that she was not going to be able to do almost anything, now he says that we should call Miracle Chloe. Instead of Chloe, we should change the name and say, this girl, this little child is a miracle. And we say, yeah, it's a miracle that we've been working very hard.
My experience with the Doman program starts before Zakari was even a thought. I did do the reading program with my oldest son, who also has an autism diagnosis, but is super high functioning. And that was my first kind of experience with the Doman program. And then when my little guy was born, things were just like a little off. Like he started off with like right torticollis, so he was having like physical issues, and he didn't smile a lot as much as my oldest did. And he had a really big head when he was born compared to his body. Like his head was in the 95th to 98th percentile, and his body was in like the 3rd to 10th percentile. So that made him delayed with walking and crawling. But then once he started walking, he didn't go to walking. He just ran, and he seemed to run without watching where he was going. He was reckless. Then we started having behavior issues, biting. He wasn't talking. And like I said, I had experience with autism, but very, very different autism. And I was really, really lost at what to do. Like my oldest is in regular high school. Most people don't know he has a diagnosis. Like it was just a really different experience. And then we had Zakari on the reading program from infancy. Like as soon as we were able to do stuff, we did it. And he was reading at a very young age. So I knew he was really, really bright and that he was capable, but we just couldn't get his impulses under control. And then my girlfriend had worked with Doman International for well children, told me, you need to go and take this course. And at the time, you couldn't take it online. And I was like, oh, I can't make that happen. It's too expensive. And she's like, no, you need to make it happen. Just make it happen. And, that's probably the best advice I received. And then we started working with Doman International. And within a few months of coming home, people were commenting on how much he was calming down and how much he seemed to listen better and understand and how much happier he was. So that's kind of like the start of our official Doman program.
I have to say that for us, finding the Doman and this way of working was fantastic, because what we wanted to do is to do something, not waiting, not sit and wait and let's see what happens. We wanted to be an active part of the solution. And this is something that we really love from your philosophy, that we became part of the solution. I have to say that for us, the most important part that we started with was nutrition, because we understood that that was the pillar of everything else. I mean, when you start changing nutrition, and it's a hard work because it was completely different from what we were used to. But when you create this strong pillar and then you start building on top of it, then you get much better results, and it's more effective, everything that you do. So we started with that, and also a lot of physical, intellectual, and respiratory programs.
I think really, really slowly we built up the program. So I think it was about 3 years ago, Spencer, that we brought Ishan in for the initial evaluation. At that point, Ishan he had started to show changes already, because we had just made nutritional changes. I don't think we had really done anything much else of the program. But I'm going to say that as soon as we started nutrition, his GERD was gone. He had no reflux. He had already started to gain height and weight. He was just not as sickly anymore, even though we were right smack in the middle of flu season. Frequency of illness was definitely diminished. He was more alert. And I'm going to say overall, he was more happy. And this is just from cleaning up his diet. It was not a perfect nutrition program by any stretch of the imagination. It was just taking out all the junk foods that were offending his body, that was creating all that trouble for him. And his eyes were also straighter, interestingly, without even having done anything else.
You know, it's interesting that we were told that when we start this program, we'll learn so much more and we'll see our child in a different way. And I feel that that has resonated with me because it has been so true, because not only has it opened up her world, because she was locked in it. She is nonverbal. I did not mention earlier that she was nonverbal. She is nonverbal still, and that was our basic challenge, along with the cognitive, what we thought were the cognitive delays, physical delays when she was younger, you know, with delays in walking and crawling. We had those, but her most serious challenges were more of the cognitive side. And so since coming onto this program, we have gained so much insight into the person that was locked inside for 10 years. We've learned so much about what her thoughts were, what her capabilities are now. And we've learned as parents how to embrace that, respect it, and grow it. We've finally gotten a key to help unlock her potential, which my husband and I discuss every day because we don't know exactly what it is, but it could be unlimited now. Before, we were so worried, and I'm not saying our worries are gone, but now that we are able to get inside and understand who she is and learn who she is, we're finally learning who our daughter is, you know? And she's able to communicate to us and tell us these thoughts and make relationships with other family members. And that's been the biggest win for us.
Cutting to where we are right now, Ishan is, knock on wood, in the best of health he's ever been. He is the healthiest person in the family. He eats the best meals. He eats all his greens, all his vegetables, eats protein, perfectly balanced diets. He has completely overcome his GERD. He's on zero medication. Zero, like nothing at all. He just, you know, his food is his medicine. Physically, he doesn't have a running victory officially yet, but he completes a mile, 1.6 kilometers in 22 minutes. He has grown so much in height as well as weight. His chest is larger. And of course, the biggest change is cognitively. He is not just reading, he is speed reading. He has a photographic memory, which has blown us all away. I cannot even tell you the things Ishan knows. He basically speed reads at the pace that I can turn pages. So it takes him about 2 seconds to 3 seconds to scan a page and absorb everything in it before moving on to the next one. And he types in communication. He types very complex thoughts and ideas sometimes. It's beyond anything that I ever imagined we would get to. I thought my kid would be maybe learning, he would probably be able to read like a few hundred words by this point. I did not anticipate. I've been completely blown away. The whole family has been blown away by the phenomenal progress, especially in the cognitive department.
So we're going on 4 years, officially running programs, and progress is huge, like absolutely huge. Like he's toilet trained. Even just simple things like today his dad and him were going for a walk and his runners were in the van, which I have to go around the corner of the house to get. And I asked him like, oh, sit on the front step, wait for mommy, I'm grabbing your shoes. Before the program, he would have been down the street and taking off, going to visit like the neighbor's cat. And he sat there perfectly fine and waited for me. And I try to celebrate like the small victories. Like that is huge for us. The fact that he sleeps through the night now is huge for us, that bedtime's not a battle anymore, that, you know, he's not biting people anyway. It was horrible when we would go for a play date and he'd get frustrated and he'd bite another child. And I'm not talking a nip. He left bruises. And when I first went to Doman International, I was covered in like little cuts from him and scratches from frustration. We don't get hurt from him anymore. Like he's He doesn't bite, doesn't scratch. You know, when he is frustrated, he will go to his room and he will have his little meltdown there, but in a safe place. So those are the big things. Like socially, he's more interested in being around people. He gets excited when family members come and visit and upset when they leave, where before he couldn't care less who came in and who left. It's taken a lot of pressure off of me fearing for his well-being and flight risk and all of that. So those are the big things for me. He's definitely talking more, and I know everybody wants to hear about kids talking more and stuff like that, and that's improved too, but for us it's safety.
The changes were little. If I had to go back and look for one point in time where it was a drastic change, the answer I would give you would probably be a year. That's not to say she wasn't changing beforehand, because there are the little changes that occur along the way that you don't necessarily think about until they happen. Just the littlest improvements, her improvement in coordination, her improvement in attention span, her ability to look at you and finally realize and understand something you have said. But in terms of hard, fast changes, I would say maybe about a year is when my husband and I look back and we're like, okay, this is working. This is helping her.
In general, in terms of structuring the day, I found that most of the program, if it was done in the morning, was the most beneficial. So we got right after breakfast, we would get most of the cognitive program in, or as much as possible, and work our way into everything else. I found it also best to work things around meals. That was an easy way to put things into place. Ishan was eating 4 meals at that time. So before a meal, we did this amount of crawling, this amount of creeping, then we ate. After we ate, we saw some cards, we did some more masking, the BEPs. We kind of like, if we set it up that way, it worked best for us. But again, every family has to figure out what works best for them and their lifestyle. Broke everything down into bite-sized pieces, broke it down to how much can we do? Okay, so let's talk about it. So realistically, how much can you accommodate in a day? Let's do that much, and slowly build it up. And that was literally the single best approach that we took and the single best decision that we made. Because looking back, I'm going to say, you're going to fall off the horse, okay? Nobody's road here is going to be perfect.
It changes, it's fluid, definitely. It depends on life. I found most recently, the best thing for us is to write out the schedule and post it on the fridge. And so I go through our programs and I schedule in, like, I don't put times because I feel like time, like if we start missing times, it starts like, I feel defeated, like, oh, we're not going to get this done. Whereas if I just put a list of things that we need to do, and then Zachary and I check them off as we go along. I used to try to make it like Pinterest perfect with like the little, Velcro stickies. And I realized that I was spending more time trying to make it look beautiful. And it was just easier to print out a sheet every day, sit down, maybe alter a few things if I needed to add something or take something out, and print it out on a plain white piece of paper. And if we want to make it fun, we use different color highlighters. And that's as far as I go with the Pinterest perfect. But that was something I had to let go because I wanted it to look pretty, but if it's not made, it's not being used.
I think when we had started, we were always told you can do what you can, and whatever you choose to do, do it consistently. My advice to you would be, even if you just took a little bit and you did it every day and then grew upon that, and then see if you could work it into your work schedule and see how far you can go. I do understand. I was once a working mother as well, and that balance is hard. There are choices that you have to make. But if you just chose one piece and you continue to do it every day consistently, and then you build upon that, that would be my advice.
With children, it's true that sometimes things seems to be more difficult than with adults because adults can understand you. The point is that when an adult understands you but doesn't agree with you, then there's nothing to do. But with children, you are their mother or their father. They believe in you. Mm-hmm. So if you strongly believe in something, you can get them to that point. So my advice is to do what you strongly believe in, and then It's like a mountain. The first part will be difficult, but then it will be very easy to continue. You need a lot of creativity, a lot of patience also. And sometimes you have to admit yourself that maybe this is not going to be a good day. But next day you woke up and you say, we're going to try it again. I had to say we had a lot of bad days, because sometimes you enter in a month maybe that she's refusing and refusing and refusing. And then you try to change everything and motivate her in 1,000 different ways. And sometimes things are not going. I have to say, when she was refusing such a long period of time, something was happening. I don't know how to say, but maybe she was not feeling good for a reason. I had to strongly go deep inside and see what is happening, and then try to solve that. And then we could continue. But I had to say that I was able to do 60% of what I wanted to. And sometimes I was very frustrated with myself, because I was keeping in my mind, you are not doing good enough. You are not doing good enough. Then I realized that it doesn't matter as soon as you keep on trying. Maybe you have one day is not good, 2 days, maybe 1 week, maybe 1 month, but you have to keep on trying. And then you will reach a day that you will be able to break this wall and then continue doing things.
I've come very close to giving up. In fact, I think I might have given up for a month or two in between, where we did 0 program and I said, I quit. This is it. This is too much. I cannot do it. But the most important thing, and it's funny, Jagdi, that you're the one asking the question, because you were the one that guided me through the process when I was this close to quitting. And you said, do the program in smaller pieces if you need to, but don't quit. Cut it down to 50%, cut it down to 20%, do what you can, but stick with it. And I couldn't be more glad or more grateful for that advice, honestly, because if I had quit at that point, Ishan would not be where he is today. And it's a little hard to see in that moment. Hindsight is always 20/20. But in that moment, it's very easy to be overwhelmed. It's very easy to be like, okay, maybe I'm not cut out for this. And we as moms, I think we tend to beat ourselves up a lot. Like, oh, there's all these other moms there who are so perfect and, they had everything sorted and they're all figured out. And I'm a mess and my life is so like crazy and chaotic. Maybe I cannot pull it off. Maybe there's something wrong with me as a mother that I cannot do this. So I've been down that whole road of, just trying to think about whether we can even go on, because it was taking a toll. As I said, I have an older child. My husband's mostly away. We are an immigrant family here in the United States. So all of our family is back in India. Nobody really here nearby to support us, no backup. So definitely lots of times where I've considered quitting, but it was just the staff. And I'm so glad I went to DI and said, this is really hard. I don't think I can do this anymore, and left it to them to bring me back on track with Ishan's program. There's going to be a lot of bumps in the road. There's going to be days when you look at your notes and you're saying, oh my goodness, I did less than half of what I'm supposed to be doing with my child. I must be a bad mother. Please don't do that. If I were to go back in time, I would be a bit kinder to myself, a little easier on myself, and trust the process a bit more. I think for me, literally the only thing that works is thinking of each day as a new opportunity. And I just start over every single morning. I like to wipe the slate clean, start afresh. I don't like to look back too much, because it gets a bit overwhelming for me when I think about, I've not done all this and I still need to do this much. So I just set like a daily goal, wake up each morning, look at my goals for Ishan and for myself, and just take it from there. I literally just start each day afresh.
I think for us was very important, because what I realized along the years is that the parents' motivation was the motor of everything. And I remember first time I went there and I received the first lecture. At the end, I said, thank you, because of 2 things. One of them was because you gave us hope. We felt that we didn't deserve to have hope. You really gave us hope. And hope is the motor of doing things that seems to be impossible. But you have hope, then you keep doing, and at the end you get them. Maybe not exactly what you thought, but you get a lot more than if you didn't have hope.
This program, I'm not trying to make a hard sell to anybody, but it really has been the only thing that has worked for us. And it is hard. It's a commitment, but you start little. You take baby steps and you start little. And if you can do that, then you can gradually add more. And then you learn to find out what your flow is, and you don't have to have it perfect right out the gate. 3 years in, I don't have it perfect. There are certain days where she doesn't want to and I don't want to, but we do as much as we can. And there's always the next day to go ahead and keep pushing forward.
Ever since Ishan has started typing using FC, he has been saying some profound things to us, thoughts that we didn't think he was capable of thinking. Some of them have really made the journey of the last 3 years so worthwhile. It's really given meaning to my life and perspective and strength for the journey forward. So I just want to take one moment and share some of the thoughts that Ishan shared with us. The first thing he said was, my mother is my best advocate. I'm just going to pause there and just let that sink in, because I think as moms, we're so busy beating ourselves up every day that to realize that this is what my child actually thinks at the end of 3 years. He recognizes that I've fought for him and that we have worked really hard to get this far. It was very profound for me. He said, my mother is my best advocate. I feel like I should put that in a frame and hang it in my room at my bedside. Another thing he said was, my family is my amazing strength. So he gets that. He really, really gets that. We were amazed that he gets that.
And it took some months for me to realize that being different is not bad. And that it was better for me and for her to accept that difference and live proud of it, instead of fighting to be the same as them, because you are not the same. There is a group of characteristics that, you know, you can have little differences and it's okay. But there are some things that when you are very different, people start looking at you and asking you. My husband and I, we were talking about it. And I say, I prefer to make her strong, to make her self-confident, and to make her feel comfortable being different than trying to fit in a world of standards. I have to say that as a parent of a kid with a brain injury, you get used to people telling you, okay, she's not going to be able to do this, she's not going to be able to do that, or maybe she's a little bit behind what she should do or whatever. And then when we travel to Doman, and then I remember, and it's very moving to me, sitting there with a lot of parents all over the world, and then Spencer was telling our victories. And the whole group of parents, we were clapping so hard. You know, this is something that you usually don't get. You always get the part of, you are not achieving what you should. And then at this point, everyone was clapping and they were cheering because you were having this victory and that victory. And I thought, we deserve that. Our children deserve that. Yeah. You know, a place where people really congratulate you because you're doing a hard job and you're getting victories.
Yeah. I wish you all the best of luck. You all know what's best for your child because you know your child. And they definitely look at you not only as their advocate, but the person for them. And so they rely on you. They enjoy working with you. And it might be hard. You guys have asked about how do you motivate your child. One of the biggest motivations is they get time with you. At least that's been with my daughter. And so don't sell yourself short, no matter what you choose to do, and try to make it as fun as possible. I know I made it sound like there's a lot of work, but it's really been rewarding. I've gotten to know my daughter a lot, and I've gotten in shape myself as a result. So that's one added benefit.
It's hard to believe that I'm on this end of it now. It's still on this side of the program, but good luck to everybody, really. It's an overwhelming journey. Don't let it wear you down. You're here for a reason. You've come to Doman International. You're doing the Doman Method course. It's because you've tried other things and they haven't worked. You're here for a reason. Stick with it. There's something about it. It's not going to be easy, but just stay the course. You'll be so grateful that you didn't quit.